right, so we had the 3 and the 4 were the numbers we're going to use, and they are either both addition or subtraction since we have a positive constant, which means we are looking at 3 and 4, 3 and 4, and then it is either addition in both of these or subtraction in both of these. Well, so we've got it narrowed down to 2 possibilities. So you can go through and FOIL these out, and you should be able to figure out which one is the correct one. If you want to think through it logically, if we have subtraction here, then they both have to be subtraction, because otherwise there's no way we could get a negative middle term. If I have w plus 3 and w plus 4, that's going to multiply to w squared plus 4w plus 3w plus 12, which will give you a 7w as the middle term, but it's going to be a positive 7w. So we need to pick this one, which will give us the negative 7w. So we'd have w squared minus 4w minus 3w plus 12. And that will get us back to our original trinomial there. So again, you can always check your answers. You can get stuck and not get the correct answer, but you should know whether your answer is correct or not. Okay, so let's look at the next. I think we're going to look at the ones with the y's there. So I'm going to put a little bit more paper here so I have space for my work. Okay, so we're looking at y squared plus 18y plus 80. So 80, the constant, is the one that I'm going to need to factor. So 1 and 80, 2 and 40, 3 does not work, 4 and 20, 5 and 16, 6 doesn't work because 3 doesn't, 7 doesn't work, 8, of course, and 10. And then the only factor that's left here is 9, which we know 80 is not a multiple of 9. So 9 is not going to be a factor of that. So these are my possibilities, and I am looking for the pair that is going to get me to that 18. So when you're looking through these, remember you could be subtracting or adding. We do know that we have a positive constant. So we are going to be looking at either both addition or both subtraction for our possible binomials. You could narrow it down to just addition here because we know that it's all positive here. So there's no way we can end up with all addition if we have some subtraction going on. So that second possibility will end up getting stricken out later. But for the moment, so 8 and 10 will add to that correct middle term of 18, but still multiply to 80. So try y plus 8 and y plus 10, or it's y minus 8 and y minus 10. And then it's very similar to the previous one, where you're going to have to make sure that the middle term matches. And that may mean multiplying this entire thing out to FOIL it out to make sure. Whatever works best for you. Some people can mentally do this enough to figure out what the middle terms are, say, okay, well, this would be a positive 10y and a positive 8y, so that's going to be a positive 18y. Or it's going to be a negative 10y and a negative 8y, giving me a negative 18y. So that one won't work because it's not going to get me the sign I need on that middle term. So not only do we need to get the number correct, but the sign of whether it's positive or negative needs to be correct as well. Okay, let's look at the z squared minus 3z minus 18. Put a little bit more. Let me write that down a little bit lower here. All right, so a couple things to notice. So 18 is the constant. That's the one we're going to factor. It's subtraction, so it's plus minus for our binomials. One will be addition, one will be subtraction. And then we're looking for a negative 3 as our middle term. So 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. What's left before I start repeating terms is 4, which won't work, and 5. We know 18 is not a multiple of 5. So these are the only possibilities I need to think about. And then the one that is going to add or subtract to 3. So if I think about the 1 and the 18, that's either going to go to 19 or 17. 2 and 9 either goes to 11 or 7. And the 3 and 6 either go to 9 or 3. So that will be the partners that you're going to want because they will multiply to 18, but we can get them to subtract, in this case, to 3. So 3 and 6. Now there's still 2 possibilities here. We just need to, let's see here. What I do is I just flip-flop the addition and subtraction. So I change which one is positive, which one's negative, so that we can match that middle term. So looking at this, we're going to have z and plus 6, plus 3 minus 6, or z minus 3, z plus 6. So I tend to make sure that I get all of my possibilities taken care of. I keep the numbers in the same order, and I flip-flop the addition subtraction symbols. All right, so if we look at this, each of these, if I multiply the constants, so 3 times negative 6 is going to give me the negative 18. So same thing here. So the question is still, do I get which pair will give me a negative 3z as the middle term? So if I look at this one, so we would get z squared minus 6z plus 3z minus 18. And hopefully you can see that here as we start adding those together, we would get a negative 3z there. So z squared minus 3z minus 18, which is where I started. So that is going to be the pair of binomials that I want for my answer. If you multiply these guys out, which, it's never a bad thing to double check your work, then we would get a positive 6z and a negative 3z, which means we would get then a positive 3z there in the center. So we would still get 3, but it's going to be positive, so this is not going to be the one that we want. So our final answer then would be z plus 3, z minus 6, and remember that you could flip-flop these, so you might see it as z minus 6 and z plus 3. Either of these are fine. They are exactly the same. Okay. That's out from under here. Okay, so let's look at the next one down the center there. So that one would be w squared plus 4w minus 12. So 12 is the one I'm going to factor. So 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. And, if it's a small enough number, you may not need to actually write this out, but sometimes there are ones that can try to fool you. So, it's a good idea to write out your t-table until you're really feeling comfortable all the time doing this mentally, which you will get to eventually as you do these. But for right now, I would definitely make sure you're writing out your t-table. All right, so we want to have 4 for our middle term. So for 1 and 12, we're either going to get 13 or 11. 2 and 6, we either get 8 or 4. And then 3 and 4, we either get the 7 or the 1. So that's going to lead us to taking the 2 and 6, because that will help us to get the 4 as the middle term. So we're going to have plus. Okay, and then plugging in the 2 and 6. So we're either adding 2 and subtracting 6, or we are subtracting 2 and adding 6. And we look and see which one is going to give us the appropriate middle term. So multiplying those constants, you can double check that that's going to give us negative 12. That would give us negative 12. So that part of it we have forced to be correct. So now the last step is to see which one's going to give us the positive middle term. So if I look at the top one, the w plus 2, w minus 6, so we'll get w squared minus 6w plus 2w minus 12, which this will give us a negative 4w for our middle term. And then if I work through foiling the other one, we'd get w squared plus 6w minus 2w minus 12, and then this would give us a positive 4w for the middle term. So the one that we are going to want for the answer is that second choice. So the w minus 2 and w plus 6 is going to be our answer on that one. And of course, you could flip-flop the entire binomials. So it could be written as w plus 6 and w minus 2. So you can't flip-flop within the binomials because of the subtraction that's going on in there, but you can interchange the entire sets of parentheses there. All right. All right, I'm going to pause for just a moment. All right, so we are going to look at the bottom of page 11. Pardon me. Here we go. So bottom of page 11, and we've got a couple talking about correct factorizations. So I've kind of talked about that one already, so I'm going to skip down to this one on the bottom. So which one is the correct factorization of w squared plus 2w plus 1? So let's just quick factor that. Ignore the fact that these are here for a moment. So we'll have, okay, 1. All right, well, okay, you can write a t-table for 1, but it's just going to be 1 times 1. So we know that it's going to be w and 1 and w and 1. And because that 1 was positive, they are either both addition or they are both subtraction. And then you can check with your middle term there. We're going to get a positive middle term, so we're going to have to pull the positive pair. All right, so that's how we get that. Then the question is, which one is the correct factorization? That or that squared? And the answer is actually that they are both the same. So they are, one is just written in exponential form and one is not. So both are correct. Double check. I think Alex does prefer the exponential form. So Alex does prefer that second one where it has the binomial squared, but it is the exact same answer as the other one. So if you do happen to put that on a test, then I will catch that when I'm going through and checking answers. All right. And that, we are now going to flip to page 12 and look at a couple of these with factoring completely. So first of all, and I did already mention this, but just to, doesn't hurt to emphasize this again, make sure that it is in descending order. Make sure your trinomial is in descending order before you try to factor it. It will just make it easier, because otherwise our eyes have a tendency to say whatever the last term is, that's the constant, and you know, it's not always the case. So let's look at, I am going to skip down a little bit here, and we can hit some more of these in class, plus I will put completed notes up later so that you can look at these. So we are on page 12, and we're going to look at the opposite of y squared minus 12y minus 35, but I have to pause my video now and pick this up in video number 3. So see you in a few minutes.